Hey there! Welcome back to the Writer's Trick Box. Last time you were here, we were discussing some of the thought processes that can get in the way of us telling our stories. As a side note, I'd like to mention that recently I completed a first draft of a novel I'd been working on. In the beginning of achieving this important accomplishment, I felt amazing. I was so proud that I had finally finished this story, and even though I was done with the first draft, I couldn't wait to dive back in and polish it up. But as the days and weeks went on, doubts started to trickle in as the euphoria of my private accomplishments began to wear off. While I was still proud that I had completed my manuscript, a malicious kind of doubt started to creep in, and I heard my inner voice start to caution me about my progress. While I had finished my story for a short period of time after, I began to wonder if it was good enough. While I had no intention of submitting it anywhere, I wondered if it was something others would find valuable. And as I thought more about this, I started to open this Pandora's box of self-criticism that even after years of trying to shove under my bed or into the messy closet of the back of my mind, still occasionally found its way out into the open again. This figurative box contained toxic messages about who and what I was. Within the box sat a series of questions rolling over themselves like earthworms. Certainly I had finished a project, but did that really give me the right to call myself a writer? Was I even really qualified to speak convincingly about my subject matter in the first place? And if I never published anything, would that prove I wasn't good enough to call myself what I usually saw myself as? These questions tie into the problem I'd like to cover today at the Writer's Trick Box. Today we're going to dive into the problematic phrase of, "I'll never become a real writer." While the exact wording of this phrase varies from person to person, the commonality present between this saying and all others like it is that it indicates a particular and common kind of insecurity. In life, we often feel like doing what we love and calling ourselves what we are must be qualified. We may feel that in order to be authentically what we are, that we must achieve some official form of recognition that proves we really are as skillful, competent, creative, and capable enough to be what we want to be. We look around us and see all kinds of examples of people monetizing what they creatively do. They publish, they win awards, and the world seems to recognize them absolutely as whatever they are. Oftentimes, when we hold ourselves up for comparison, we find ourselves lacking, and it can make us feel like our skills, our private accomplishments, and the things we do or are trying to do are not good enough or worthy enough to be able to say the words, "Yes, I am a real writer." In psychological terms, if these thought patterns are persistent enough, we might find ourselves in a state where we feel like imposters. This is sometimes such a debilitating feeling or belief that it actually interferes with the enjoyment and necessity of our daily lives. When we are afflicted by these often involuntary internal feelings about our hobbies and even our professions and personal lives, what we are experiencing is defined often as imposter syndrome. In the Wikipedia article provided about this subject, imposter syndrome is defined as a pattern in which people doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent and often internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Even though we may be very skilled and knowledgeable, we worry that it's not enough, and we may fear that if we try to suggest otherwise, others outside of us will put us down, reject our ideas, or otherwise prove that we really are the frauds we think we are. To all of this, I have the following to say. It has been my experience that the definition of the words writer or storyteller should never be defined by how much or how often an individual writes, the kind of content they create, the mediums they choose to express themselves with, or their professional achievements such as publication. A writer is a writer simply because they write, just like a storyteller is a storyteller simply because they tell us stories. A painter paints, musicians play, plain and simple. I've also found through my own relationship with the mediums of writing and storytelling that creative expression, particularly through the mediums of writing in this case, is a skill that can be developed and that anyone with enough interest and dedication can learn to improve upon. Too many times in our society, writers and artists are made to believe that what they create is only significant and valuable if they aspire to a certain level of achievement. Many times, we are led to believe, inaccurately, that in order to call ourselves writers or artists without being seen as frauds, we must first gain some kind of public notoriety through such avenues as publication and demonstration. Kinder individuals insist that our only prerequisite to success is finishing what we start, which I think implies its own limitations. It is my position, as well as the position of those affiliated with the Writer's Trick Box, that, as with any kind of artistry, the only prerequisite to call ourselves what we are is the actual act of doing it. Writers write, painters paint, readers read, etc., etc., etc. In my own case, I wasn't always a writer. Writing was something I taught myself how to do as I went through life. But even though I haven't always been a writer, I have always been a storyteller, a dreamer, a teacher, a cheerleader, and a creator of things. All of these descriptive titles and learned skills are significant and valuable, even if a vast majority of what I've created will never be seen by anyone other than me or ever be put on public display. This is the unifying principle I hope will translate through the future offerings of the Writer's Trick Box as it continues its logical evolution as a platform for myself and others to express the wonder and craft of story. It is my greatest belief that writing and storytelling in the context of creative and personal expression is an activity that only needs to be pleasurable and fulfilling to the individual doing it in order to be significant and valuable to the creator, if not to the greater world. As such, it is my sincerest hope that the Writer's Trick Box will continue to provide a place for anyone and everyone to enjoy and further cultivate their individual voices as artists, as writers, as storytellers, and as creators. It is also my hope that all who grace our figurative door will find a renewed sense of strength and confidence in themselves and their abilities, as well as gain a sense of community that supports and nurtures their creative development and artistic voice. Remember, the only prerequisite needed to being anything and doing anything our hearts desire is our willingness to actually do it. You are who and what you are by being who and what you are. And if you're at the beginning of becoming something, I encourage you to be brave enough to take the first necessary steps to achieving your ambitions. It is never too late to discover the person you are meant to be. This is Alexandria S. Allen, and this has been another conversation at the Writer's Trick Box. I hope you'll join us again.
It's hard to speak in America when every word creates divide, but it seems